Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing well on this very gray Tuesday afternoon in London, but perhaps you're joining us from outside of the UK, in which case I hope it's much sunnier where you are. My background is very deceiving. But thank you all so much for joining. I would like to welcome you to today's KBS Economics Young Alumni panel. My name is Shelby and I'm the Alumni Coordinator at King's Business School. And we're so honored to have 5 recent graduates with us today who will be sharing their experiences, their advice, and where they are now in their postgraduate studies. I'm also so happy to introduce Dr. John Morrow, Senior Lecturer in Economics, who will be the chair of today's event. Just a quick note on the format. The event will run for approximately 1 hour. We'll have a welcome and introduction from John Morrow, where he will introduce the panelists joining us today, followed by a panel discussion. If you'd like to ask questions, please feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll take around 15 minutes at the end to get around to as many as we can. I would like to also remind you to remain on mute to avoid any background noise while the panel discussion is on. So, thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you to our panelists, and I will now pass it on to Dr. John Morrow.
Great, thanks for that warm introduction. I'd just like to say hello to everyone, and I guess Happy New Year, even if you're watching this as a recording. So I'm John Morrow. I'm a senior lecturer here at King's Business School. You can see I'm currently in my flat in Southwark, which is close to Guy's campus. So we're still stuck in a little bit of a thing we all know about, but hopefully we'll be meeting in person and on campus soon if you're watching this right now. So I just wanted to say, like, relevant to this discussion, so I teach Principles of Economics, Introduction to Economics at King's. So you're a business school student, you've been in my class. I teach an advanced mathematics course, which all of these people, lovely people are here have taken, which is a graduate prep class, which we'll talk about. And I also, the master's level, I also teach on international economics. So if you're a graduate student or have thought about going to grad school, you see me there too at King's Business School. So what we really want to do today is we want to connect some of our recent graduates here with current students or prospective students. And we want to hear about their experience at King's, their internships and preparation, the postgraduate studies, and also just things that might help people watching this think about their future career paths or future placements and future degree programs. So I'm going to do a quick introduction here. I'm going to actually read off the prompter here. So what we have, everyone here is currently studying a postgraduate degree. Our first guest speaker, Temerlin here, it's on the center of my screen, Temerlin Upshaw, graduated in 2021 with a BSc in economics at the business school. He recently completed a summer internship at KPMG as a management consultant and is currently completing a master's degree in finance at Imperial College London, which I hear is a cakewalk by all measures. Our next speaker, Awa Savan, he graduated in 2020 with a BSc in philosophy, politics, and economics at King's. I believe he's in Chengdu right now, so we're already kind of getting dispersed globally. He was recently out in off-cycle investment analysis at Mercury and is currently completing a master's degree in global affairs at Schwarzman. We also have Magdalena Lampart-Frau, who graduated in 2021 with a BSc in, again, PPE at King's. And you're in Spain now, is that right? Barcelona, maybe? Or
I'm in Madrid right now.
Madrid,
Yeah.
probably. So Spain, third country. That's great. She's currently completed a master's degree in economics and finance at CEMFI. Then we have Lucas von Braun, or Johannes, who graduated in 2021 with a BSc in economics and management from the business school. He's currently studying economics as a postgrad student at the University of Oxford, and he's also doing part-time research in econometrics and climate econometrics still here at King's. And our final speaker, Ariel, is graduated in 2021 with a BSc in economics from the business school. She's recently completed an internship as an analyst at Financial Technology Partners and is currently studying her master's degree in management science and engineering in Columbia University and is actually in Miami right now. Okay, so you guys are you're all go-getters. You're doing way more at your age than I was doing at my age in my early 20s. Bravo to you. I'm really pleased that you've all managed to show up. And we're going to put out some questions now, and then just for me, and then we'll open up the floor to more questions from people in the chat a bit later. I'd like to join me in giving a warm welcome to our panelists from the KBS Economics Young Alumni Panel, which is right here. So can I just start with a really open-ended question? Could you guys tell me about your time at King's and why did you study economics? And you all have slightly different degrees, but broadly speaking, you did an economics degree.
I'm happy to start. So initially, actually, once I finished high school in Germany, I didn't really know what to study. So I took a gap year out and applied to some UK universities, including to King's for economics and management. Part of why I wanted to study economics was because I think it's really a wide field. So you can study like individual behavior and microeconomics. You can study aggregate things in macro. And so even if that wasn't like my absolute favorite thing, if it turned out that I don't like it, I can still focus on something and complete my degree and have fun with it without feeling I need to quit. And so econ and management was a very flexible degree. I had lots of choices. And I ended up really enjoying economics, which is why I studied now for 2 more years at a master's level. Really, really enjoyed my time at King's.
That's great, thanks.
I can add to that. For me, economics was more of a universal course. So it covers broad aspects of finance and analysis, econometrics. It kind of gives you a great foundation if you don't know exactly which field you're looking at whether it be finance or analytics or something more related to research, economic research. It's a great place to start. So I thought it would give me a good foundation so I can then specialize in one specific field. In this case, I chose finance. After I took a finance course in the second year, I thought that's something I'd really like to do. Plus, it's very applicable to real life in terms of the job opportunities and career prospects. So economics kind of gives you the foundation, universal knowledge in all business-related areas, and gives you a better understanding of how the world economics works in terms of the macro perspective. Also has enough math content to keep you interested and challenged, especially John's course, Advanced Math. Yeah, I found it very useful for my further studies. So if you're looking for to go for a postgrad, definitely take Advanced Math. It's my recommendation.
Thank you for that kind of recommendation. Would other people like to can add to that?
I can add to that. That was a great sell, Timmerland. But I really liked maths in high school, and I considered going for maths, but I was also studying economics, and I thought having this applicability to the whole world, and also, as you both mentioned, trying to get a bit of finance in, a bit of accounting, management, even politics, I thought that would be super interesting. And I actually found that my time at King's was very inclusive, and the people in my course were actually very helpful towards one another, and we kind of worked together to reach all of our potentials together.
Yeah, from my part, I can say that I decided to study economics also because I couldn't really make up my mind on what I wanted to do. So I went for PPE. And mostly for me was that economics, and as the years went by, then I defined my interest more towards economics. And I think it's because economics has the social aspect about it, which really intrigues me, but it also has a method that I really enjoy. So the mathematical and statistical side. And I think that's fascinating, and it's also really fun to do.
Yeah, on my end, I think it's similar to Magdalena. I also did PPE, so I actually didn't choose my degree specifically for econ, to be honest. I initially wanted to do philosophy, but I thought it would be a bit more employable degree than pure philosophy. So I was like, okay, let's just throw some econ into it. And I actually did end up loving it and being it being my main subject, especially on the more mathematical side. These were definitely like the modules I like the most, including the module from John. So yeah, I'm more in line with Magdalena's answer.
So maybe could we go around quickly and just kind of mention like what you're currently studying off the back of that and why you decided to do a postgraduate degree? I mean, you guys are kind of a very selected sample for people doing postgraduate degrees. It was really soon after their bachelor's, right? But it's pretty common actually for people even to do in their late 20s and so forth. But so yeah, if you just a little bit about what you're studying and why you're doing a postgrad degree now.
Well, in my case, it was quite straightforward because since I had done PPE and I really liked economics, I didn't feel like I knew enough economics in any sense. So even for the pure knowledge, I wanted to study more economics, but also from a job perspective, the sort of job I would have been able to do just out of my undergrad are not the sort of jobs I want to do because I want them to have a stronger technical aspect. And I'm also like, sorry, and I don't think I've said it, like I'm doing a master's in economics, which is 2 years long. And it gives me the option to then get into a PhD, which is also an option I consider. And I feel like these 2 years will give me enough time to decide whether that's the path I want to take.
I'm currently studying finance at Imperial, and I think it's a useful course in terms of career prospects. So if you're looking to start off at a nice firm at some finance position, that's the go-to. I mean, in terms of knowledge, some subjects could be challenging, but in general, it is very interesting. We have some very specific modules such as blockchain, which I think is very useful in the new upcoming crypto world, where digital currencies will likely be dominating the economy. We also have some very advanced modules such as derivatives or advanced corporate finance, which do help you to train kind of your logical thinking. It gives you challenges that you can overcome. And one thing I really like about the way Imperial sets challenges is that most of the projects are actually group work. So you're also learning to collaborate with peers, make new friends, connections, and the teamwork does train you for the future, your future employment, where most of the work will be conducted as a team. So I feel like my university really tries to make studying as applicable to real life as possible. So it deviates from the theoretical part at the undergrad to sort of more practical, job-oriented training at a master's degree. That's something I also enjoy.
Yeah, for me, I'm doing economics, pure master's in economics for 2 years here at Oxford. I think I can echo what has been said. First of all, I really enjoy the fact that it's a 2-year degree and not a 1-year degree, because it really gives me time to decide whether I want to like pursue a PhD after the master's or go find a job afterwards or do something else. In a 1-year degree, that can sometimes be quite like smushed together. You have to essentially decide in the beginning of your degree, oftentimes, and for some people that's the right thing. But for me, I wanted to explore a bit more if research is the thing for me, if I can really enjoy doing it for a couple more years to do a PhD or not. So and yeah, at the moment I'm taking core macro, and econometrics modules, nothing else. So pretty this much the standard, but it's challenging at times, certainly. But if you enjoy econ in your undergrad, chances are good that you will enjoy econ in postgrad too.
I can jump in here. So as John said, I'm doing the Schwarzman Scholarship at the moment. So to give a bit of background, because it's not a very classical master's, it's essentially a 1-year fully funded master's program at Tsinghua University in China, in Beijing. It's a program that was initially created to respond to the geopolitical landscape of the 21st century. So it's a very recent program. Their goal is to essentially to build a community, global community of future leaders across a lot of different industries and fields who will serve to deepen the understanding between China and the rest of the world. And so to give you more concretely what we essentially study, even though a lot of the program is more about the experience of China and the networking with the other scholars, the actual courses are around three main pillars. We have classes on China, which will include things like history, sociology, politics, and economics, everything related to the country. Secondly, will be international affairs and global affairs. And third one is leadership. So these are like the three. And then, of course, also Chinese language. So to explain a bit why I decided to do this. So my background before that was I did basically internships in investment banking and technology, and then in tech private equity. And so my short to midterm goal was to go work in technology investments, with a long-term goal to go back to my initial interest in diplomacy and international affairs, to work either in technology policy or in technology diplomacy. And so my idea, given that China is essentially shaping a large part of the current global affairs, especially when it comes to tech, my goal was to go to China, explore the entrepreneurship landscape, the technology landscape there. Also, to be honest, irrespectively of the career outcomes, a fully paid year of adventures in China didn't sound too bad to me. So that was a bonus.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah, I can just finish this off. So I'm doing the Management Science and Engineering Masters at Columbia. And for me, it was more of like, okay, I started my third year of university and I was like, do I apply to jobs? Do I apply to internships? Do I apply to masters? Like I was like all over the place and I was like, okay, I cannot do all three. So I really have to focus in. And I just thought, if I want to apply for a master's, it's probably like now more than later, because if we're really honest with each other, we have way more time as students than if I pictured myself working. And I thought, even if I apply for a 2+2 MBA, for example, and not study right away, I want to apply this year. So that's what I did. And I decided to do my master's straight away because I think I pictured myself working in the US, and it was a great intermediate step. But I also thought, okay, with the economics degree we have, it's a great theoretical base, great analytical base, but I thought there was maybe some transferable practical skills missing. And so I decided to do this degree because it was a combination of, okay, I'll learn hardcore skills like coding and stuff like that, but I'll also be taking classes such as managerial negotiations, where I'll just have to like learn how to speak and like bring a case to life. So that's why I decided to do my master's straight away.
Okay, wow. I mean, I guess that's another thing that you don't always talk about. You get, which came up with Temerlin saying that most of the group work, or most of the work in Imperial is group work and the soft skills you just mentioned, right? Presenting and getting people involved in a story and kind of energizing them. I guess, could I along those lines, in terms of those kind of skills, like what advice would you give to students who want to apply to these kind of competitive graduate programs? And also, when should they start preparing? I mean, because everywhere, I mean, you guys are all at great places, right? I mean, do you have any kind of tips for students? Maybe there might be, say, in their first year now, for instance.
I can give some tips specifically for these scholarship programs. I think it's very different. Like the way you apply to something like the Schwarzman Scholarship or the Rhodes Scholarship is very different than like a traditional, like just the master's program. So keep that in mind, that this advice mostly applies if you're interested in these programs. So very often you need multiple essays that are very personal. And so I would recommend starting to write these essays very long in advance. It's not at all like an academic essay, which you can just bump out in a week, like if you just work 12 hours a day. it's one of those essays that requires a lot of self-reflection, and that will take a lot of time to mature in your head. And so I know for me, it's something like my essays for the short-term scholarship, for instance, I started them basically all the way at the start of the summer, 1.5 years before I applied, right? And then I had my summer in banking, so basically couldn't do anything during that time. And I even though I hadn't thought about it for like the 10 weeks where I was working in the summer internship, like a lot of things had matured in my head, and that's usually not something that you need in your other types of essays. So that's the number one advice. Second one is don't read someone else's personal essays before you have a first full draft that you would be okay to submit. That's mainly because I think you lose some of the authenticity that these programs are looking for. If you actually start like modeling, or you already have like a canvas of what it should look like. And the third one is, I think reference letters are very important. So try to develop relationships with your professors very early on. And yeah, the last one is for these types of programs, what's very important is to have a very coherent and fully fledged story on why, because they are paying essentially for you, right? It's like you're a massive cost. They're investing hundreds of dollars into you. So you need to explain to them why you would serve the cause that they are trying to advance, and why essentially they should invest in you by offering you this chance. And so very often you need to craft a story that starts really early in your childhood and almost portray yourself as like this perfect person that has been, groomed since his childhood to achieve that goal. And it sounds very cliche, but I think this is kind of the way you should approach it. And very often it's a self-reflection exercise that is very, very interesting for yourself. Even if you don't end up getting these offers. I know, for instance, I got rejected by some of these scholarship programs in the past. And it was a very actually enriching experience because I spent a lot of time thinking about, okay, why do I want to do what I want to do, etc. Yeah.
I can probably build off of that. And I think it's very interesting you asked for first years, because during my application process, there's probably like quite a few things I would have like loved to know as a first year that I definitely did not think about in my first year of undergrad. And I think there's two things. When you're in first year, I think it's very important to think, okay, when I graduate, what mark do I want to leave? What do I want to have achieved? And like maybe try break it down into years. But I think also being involved in something in continuity. So like for the 3 years of your undergrad, if you can, or 2 years or something like that, be it clubs, be it sports. I think that's super important because that shows that you have commitment. You're not just like all over the place, but also as Alui, you mentioned, it helps you once you actually write your master application to craft a coherent story, even if like in the whole reflection process, that's what you're thinking you want to go into. And then once you start your master's or once you apply for a job, you realize, okay, that was not at all what I want to go into. It helps to have a coherent story. So that's what I would say for like the years of your undergrad program. I would say also internships are like a huge thing. And I think King's does a great job with helping with interview prep, which I actually did not really know about until my final year. So I would definitely take advantage of that. And then during the application process, I think something that I personally definitely underestimated was the whole GRE GMAT prep. So I would say if during your second year of undergrad, you have some free time in your summer, definitely start taking a look at that. It will definitely be helpful.
That's great. And
Yeah.
the other ones I remember studying for the GRE, like it must have been, oh my goodness, almost 20 years ago. But yeah, learning esoteric English words. And another guy was this brilliant Russian mathematician. So his English, I'm sorry, it was pretty weak. I mean, it was hard to have a conversation with him, but he memorized those words and he got a higher score than me. So yeah, studying will pay off. Does anyone else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I could add to the advice for the first or second years is try to make friends with as many people as you can. In terms of building friendships and building connections, you never know when they come useful in later stages, whether it be someone helping you with your application letter or giving valuable advice for the master's course or just helping you with some cool job reference or something like this. So use this opportunity while you're at King's to make as many connections as possible, make as many friends as possible. The bigger your network, the bigger you're basically increasing the probability that someone will help you with, I don't know, a reference letter or advise you with a good company, or you can take advice from several people when you're applying to masters or to the job. So really try to socialize as much as you can. And for the master's application, yeah, just advise to apply as early as you can. I think statistically, you have a better chance of getting into most programs if you apply in September rather than in March. So if you spend August, for example, or early September working on your application, and then you can just send it out. It doesn't take too long. I think it took me like 1 week to send out 5 applications, and usually takes about 2-3 hours to send out to each uni. So the most important thing is to really work on your personal statement. That's the main characteristic that they're judging you on. And yeah, definitely take advice from people, give other master's students or alumni your personal statement to read before you submit it. For example, my first draft was actually pretty bad, although I thought it was good, but it turned out to be horrible. I had to redo it all. Luckily, I had friends who got accepted to similar programs at LBS. Sorry for the noise. And they did help me to polish my personal statement, which did end up getting me a few offers. Yeah, so basically, use your time to build connections, and then after you graduate, the connections will definitely be useful.
Yeah, maybe I can say a little bit about the more sort of quantitative econ postgrad degrees, because there are some differences maybe in how you want to approach the application to say you want to do a master's in management science or these scholarship programs, which Alois mentioned. So for at least in my experience with the masters in pure economics, they want to see more of like your quantitative side and maybe not so much of your personal side. So it's great if you have like a particular interest in economics that you can mention in your personal statement and say, hey, that's like my personal, that's what I want to explore more. That's why I want to take this degree. They're really happy to hear that, the universities you apply to. I don't think you have to give as much of like your like personal backstory in your personal statement to these degrees. They're really more focused on what have you done, why do you want to take this degree, and for that it can help if you just look at the webpage of the university, see how they what they say the degree is about. If they say this will be a quantitative degree, you need to bring some math statistics background, then it may be like really good if you point that out in your personal statement, if you've taken any like math classes or stats classes, and especially if they're like outside what was expected of you. Yeah, I can echo the other point. It's good to have good relationships with a few professors, because you'll probably need a few references, 2 or 3. And if they kind of know you a bit more than the average student in your cohort, they can write a much more personalized statement, and that can only be to your benefit. Yeah, I'd say start in the fall before you end your degree if you want to do the master's right after. your undergrad, you have plenty of time if you start in September to submit them before the deadlines. It's also great to give your professors who write your recommendations a bit of time and not say, hey, tomorrow I have this deadline. They'll really appreciate you. And yeah, otherwise I echo what has been said before.
Yeah, I completely agree with what everyone is saying. For example, what Johannes has said about having a really strong quantitative preparation if you want to do a pure economics master's. I think it's crucial not only for acceptance, but also for when you're in the master's. So the more things you learn before the master, the easier your life is going to be during it. But also the more you're going to enjoy it because you're going to be able to go more in depth. So for example, we all took the advanced mathematics class with John Morrow. And had it not been for that class, my first semester, I might have dropped out of my master because it would have been my first time exposed to proofs and like really complex theorems and just thinking in a mathematical way that I didn't know before. And a lot of my classmates really struggled. Some of them dropped out. And it's not because they weren't intelligent, it's just because they had not been trained before. So definitely take that advice, in my opinion. And also, I cannot stress enough how important it is to take the GRE out of the way as soon as possible. I left it for the last minute in January, and it was pretty bad. So if you can do it during the summer, that would be ideal.
Yeah, if I can jump in for like a brief second, I think you raised a really good point. You really cannot do enough matrix algebra in your undergrad degree. If you go on to do a master's in economics, there's really no upper limit. It can only benefit you, and the more the better.
Yeah, exactly. Because I guess it must be the same for you, but I'm in class with people who've done engineering and physics, and they still struggle with it. So me, who has done PP, the more I had practice, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's kind of a natural segue into my next question, which is, have you come across any challenges post-graduation? So it might not just be coursework, but, also, moving again to another country, another school, integrating with that, other life changes. I mean, any other challenges post-graduation you think or might be you want to share with people?
For me, it was more of an academic challenge because the amount of work is significantly larger, like in terms of the volume, than even in the third year undergrad. For example, we have rolling coursework assessments. Every single week, it's a deadline for another coursework for a different subject. Most of them are quantitative for my degree. So for example, in undergrad, even in third year, I could be working, maybe just attending the lectures and doing the basic amount of work to prepare for tutorials, and the rest of the time would be free time basically. But on masters, it doesn't really work because you have to spend extra time in the library to work on the assessments, and then you have to make sure that when the exam come, there is no extra time to prepare for them. For example, our winter exams, we literally had new material until 1 week before the exams, and the exams took place before Christmas. So you had to attend lectures, do the homework for tutorials, do the courseworks, and prepare for the exams at the same time. So definitely the amount of work is significantly larger. But other than that, the integration was pretty smooth, and people were very friendly, and everyone was very outgoing. It was also nice to hear that teachers themselves, the professors, they really tried their best to make sure everyone is friends with each other, especially in the first weeks and months. We had lots of social events. I think it's the case for any master program, where we had bar trips, organized club events, just to make sure everyone knows each other. That was very fun. So shouldn't be any problems integrating in terms of socially, shouldn't be any problems, and because professors are doing everything they can to help new people get to know each other. So as long as you keep up with the work, master shouldn't be too bad for you.
I would say one thing that I don't know how much of a challenge it was, but it was more of a what do I do situation. So I did an internship this past summer in investment banking, and very surprisingly, I really enjoyed it. And they made me an offer to come back. And usually they make you offers to come back the summer after. Usually you have 1 year left of master or of undergrad. And my program is 3 semesters. So even if I did my 3rd semester in summer, I would finish in August. And in investment banking, you cannot do a semester and work at the same time. It's very complicated. So it was a bit of a tricky situation of like, what do I do? And I guess it like opened my, so I didn't want to, it was a bit tricky because I didn't want to tell them this at the beginning so that they wouldn't make me an offer, but then I would have to tell them at some point because I wouldn't be able to accept it for summer. And so I kind of just tried my best during the internship. And because like, obviously it's a problem only if they make you an offer anyways. So they don't want to jump the gun. And when they did make me an offer, I had to like have a conversation with the hiring managers and explain the situation to them. And if you've done a good job and if they want you there, they're offering you a place because they want you there, they'll wait 1 more semester for you to finish your training because it's in their interest too. So I guess like being able to negotiate with them was something I maybe didn't know I would be able to do, but it's good to know that it is something you can do. And within my actual degree, I would say, so the people that I'm with come from like the best engineering school. France has some like big engineering schools and they're all very bright students. Some have worked for quite a number of years and I was just like out of like undergrad. So it was a bit overwhelming sometimes to like feel like maybe I didn't know as much as the other people on the engineering side. And for that, I think definitely connections help in terms of like sitting down with friends who've done it before or sitting down with friends who haven't done it before and are also struggling and trying to figure it out together. But at the end of the day, it's also just like, for me personally, I really like working by myself. So putting in the time, reading the notes, rereading the notes, going to office hours is also very helpful.
Yeah, I have something quite similar to say from a slightly different angle, which is upon graduation, my main question was, okay, what do I want to do now? And if you do things well, if you get good internships, etc., during your undergrad, you probably will get a lot of good options. And so, at least in the competitive environment where I was evolving, it was sometimes hard to remember that it's not a race. And so I had my offers, right? I had some offers in consulting, in investment banking from the summers I had done, but none of these felt really right to me. But I still felt a big pressure to, okay, don't waste time. Just bump out your 2 years in investment banking, and then you'll figure it out. And so you kind of have this pressure, one, to enter the workforce as fast as possible. And I think it's a good thing. If you don't feel like it's really the right choice, don't succumb to that pressure. You really don't need to choose straight away. What I did, for instance, is I ended up delaying all my offers. And I took a year off where I worked 6 months in tech. Then I worked 6 months in investment fund. And after that year, I ended up rejecting all the initial offers I had delayed to go to China, right? And now I'm like super happy I didn't spend the last 2 years doing investment banking because it wouldn't have fit me at all. And I'm super happy I had like 2 years of adventure. And I'm much clearer on what I want to do. And I'm not sure I would have had such a personal growth if I had succumbed essentially to that pressure of, okay, don't lose 2 years, just get out your 2 years of consulting or investment banking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's really not a race. You definitely have time if you want to spend a year doing something individual. Definitely do that. I think a challenge for me in my postgrad degree at the moment is that it's really different balancing your life and the studies at the same time. I think that's part of the philosophy of some of these graduate courses. They really want to make you decide how much time you want to spend on your degree and how much time sort of in the social university life. It's definitely the case that if you spend all your time studying, that at some point you just run against the wall. I think, at least in my degree. The question is just how much you really want to study, and say if you're set on doing a PhD, maybe it's more important to get distinctions or the higher grades in these master courses. But if you know that I'm just doing the masters for learning more and getting another qualification after my bachelor's, with the intention of just joining the industry after that, then you can definitely also take care of your mental health a bit more, and spend some time just enjoying a postgrad life, because that's part of it, part of the experience.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say that my challenges are relatively boring because I'm basically just doing a master, and they're like, it all has been about how difficult the master is. And in a way, yeah, it's more difficult than the undergrad, but I feel like King's, at least for me, was never too easy. So I was already exposed to not being able to get everything right, which is what I feel like a lot of people have struggled in my master's. The fact that you will never cover all the material, you will never understand anything, and you really have to accept this and try to deal with it and do your best.
So I actually really like your point there. I think you get a lot of humility when you go to a top program, because you might be a big fish in your undergrad program, but now it's the rest of the world, right? And so that's one thing I think King's actually does really well. You guys managed to find each other, on your degree program, which you're this kind of set of people, and so you got to have some kind of experience working together and knowing each other, right? So it's not a completely new environment. I guess just we got a couple minutes before we go to Q&A, but just quickly. Can you just say, where do you see yourself after the completion of your degree, right? Just in a few words. I mean, who knows, right? But where do you see yourself going in the next couple of years?
I mean, for me, since I'm more into the macro side of economics, I'd really love to spend a bit of time working, say, at a central bank as an analyst, or even just like an economic consultancy, where I can apply a bit of the knowledge that I gained during my degrees. So yeah, after the degree, I'd probably go for that and see how it goes.
For me, I might just do a couple years of experience in some consulting or investment or asset management firm, preferably a boutique one, because working in a big bank, it just feels like you're just a small part of a large mechanism, and you won't get much experience. So I'm not even doing this for the salary, it's just for the experience of working in a corporate environment and actually learning how to do things, how to apply the knowledge to the real world. But also, very importantly, aside from working hours, I'd like to work on my own projects. For example, I'm currently working on several finance-related projects with the friends and connections that I've made throughout my undergrad and postgrad degrees. And I'm hoping to maybe keep working on them as a sort of a side hustle, an extra stream of income, to maybe grow them into something larger in the longer run. But for now, just a 2-3 year perspective, just to have some experience at a Western company, but very importantly, have hours outside my work to work on more important projects.
I personally based my personal statement of my master's thinking I would go into consulting, and I actually really randomly did this investment banking internship, which I was like super nervous about just doing first summer. And I really liked it. And I think it's because it was in a small firm and not like a huge firm. And so I'm actually very excited to do this degree because it's like time for myself also, and then go back to that world for a couple of years. So that's what I'll hopefully be doing.
Yeah, in my case, it's quite vague. I think I really want to do research at some point, but the thing is, I have still defined my interest well enough, which I hope to do over these 2 years.
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot, folks, for that. I guess, should we open up the floor to any questions from the audience there? The audience members are there. I've never done this live Q&A thing. I'll take it from the chat, folks. You have a question. Hello. What are the master's programs that you recommend in the UK? Ooh, contentious. So do you guys have any? You guys want to chime in on that?
Ashke, is there any specific subject you're interested in, or I think it's hard to answer unless you give us like a more specific subject. Economics. So I think there are other people who can jump in, but in this case, also depends. I think I initially thought I was going to do a master's in econ straight after my undergrad, and there are a large amount of really good econ masters in the UK. I think it depends what's the specific aspect of econ that you're most interested in. So for instance, on my end, I was most interested in development economics. So the one I was looking at was the economics for development masters, that's a 1-year master at Oxford. And I know there are a few more development oriented econ masters. And then you can also go for like the more traditional 2-year, I think, econ masters like Johannes is doing. I think in this case, I think the LSE, Oxford, and Cambridge are very, 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 very strong. But I'm sure he can probably jump in and add a lot more, a lot more info to that.
Yeah. Good question. So I applied for 3 masters, and in the end, I decided between the LSE. So I applied for the econometrics MSc, which is a 1-year program. I've heard it's quite intense and much denser in terms of the quantitative part. And then the one that I'm currently on, the 2-year MPhil in economics at Oxford, where you have 2 years. And actually that was quite a significant decision point for me, that it wasn't just 1 year. I'd say, so from my experience, if you want to go abroad and do a PhD, for example, in the US, then I think the LSE Masters is preferred, because it has quite a good reputation abroad and gives you really good chances. The thing is that you'd have to, I think, take a year off after the Masters, though, because it's very hard to get good references at the beginning of your program where you don't know any of your tutors or professors. I mean, here in Oxford, it's quite a big econ department. There might be there's slightly more microeconomists here, but pretty much any area you research in is good here. Yeah, and then there are other great programs. UCL has a great econ department too. So, yeah.
If no one else has anything to add to those, we've got also, well, thank you. So what things did you consider before choosing what master's course to do?
Acceptance rate for each program for me. I tried to apply very pragmatically. For example, for Imperial, I found there is something called a disclosure act, where universities have to disclose their acceptance rate based on a request. So if you Google the acceptance rate for each program, it should able to come up on some forum. For For example, the acceptance rate for my master's, for my finance master, was about 10%. And I applied for another master's at the same university, FinTech, where the acceptance rate was 2.5 times higher, according to the same statistic. And it was just a safe choice. So definitely look at acceptance rate and make sure your chances are well balanced. Just to especially since you're only applying to, for example, I only applied to 5 universities, and there are not many universities worth applying to. If you're already at King's, you ideally want to upgrade. So it's only what, LSE, Oxbridge, Imperial, maybe Warwick. So you only have a limited number of shots to go. So definitely make a calculated decision.
I will add something. I think sometimes when people consider basically to do a master or not, and here it's more about whether to do a master or not. I have a lot of friends who just ended up doing a master because they were not sure what to do, and it was a way to delay the choice. And I'd like to maybe point out and be aware that you're just delaying the choice, right? Like you will have the same problem next year. And I feel like I have a lot of friends who had this problem. And so the first thing I would consider before like looking at what masters I want to do is, why do you want to do it in the first place? Is it just to delay your choice, or are you like trying to gain a specific skill or something that would advance you in your path, right? If you're just trying to do a master's to study another year, then maybe be conscious of that. Be conscious, okay, I just want to be a student, have fun over another year. That's completely fine. But I would just try to make very clear, okay, why am I doing a master's? That will be very useful to choose which one you want to do.
I was about to say the exact same thing, but I would also balance it with, even if you end up with the same problem after your master's, or you still don't know what you want to do, I would say it's never lost time, because you're always gaining with education, and it's always an amazing way to expand your network. You never know who you're sitting in class with, what they'll be doing in 20 years. Maybe they'll be into something you're interested in and you can build something. So I would say it's never lost. And I would say also personally for me, it was a very personal decision of where do I want to go in life? Do I want to stay in the UK? And I thought I would like to start in the US. And it was a great way to, so in the US, it's a bit complicated to just say, hi, I'll be working here. Like, that's not how it works. So in terms of visas, it was also having a STEM master's enabled me to work there for 3 years after my degree. And that was an amazing opportunity for me.
I would like to add something else, which might be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but in my case, I would say don't get too obsessed with internet forums and reputation and what happens, what sort of job opportunities you have, what sort of PhDs you can get into, because in the end, you're probably, and I know this is like way oversaid, but in the end, you're probably going to be fine. And for example, in my case, what determined my decision wasn't the reputation of the places, but what I thought would fit me more personally. So for example, I decided to go for a smaller uni with a much smaller cohort with just 20 people. And like my faculty, just 100 people overall. Because I thought that in that environment, it would be easier for me to thrive. And I think I made the right decision. So what I would say is, for you to have a sense of how these things really are, is try to talk to someone in the masters, maybe talk to your friends if they know someone. And this is what I did. And yeah, it just gave me a very accurate picture of how it could be.
Yeah, I could just jump in 1 second. I completely agree. I think just speaking to people from the program you're interested in is much more valuable than looking at like third thoughts of people online who you don't really know. And another point is also that you can consider before choosing like to do a master's is also financing. I think that's also a big thing, right? Of course, there's an opportunity cost when you say you don't go to work, you rather invest in yourself by doing a master's. Masters often here in the UK and also abroad aren't super cheap. So that's definitely one thing to consider, how to finance living for a year or two and studying a master's.
So we've got another question. It's saying King's College has an MSc in economics and finance, although I think that's basically come along after the time of all these students. So I'm actually gonna pass on that, Ashke. But if you want to drop me an email, I'll be happy to talk to you about it. About that. I guess we've got just 2 minutes. Can I just? I mean, as you guys are kind of, I guess, just to conclude this, where you're going with this as well, it's also like your lived life and experience, right? It's not just all about what ranking and what job and like, I mean, it's really easy to get totally obsessed with this stuff, right? But could you just share if you have any really happy, like one happy memory you had from King's? I mean, you spent 3 years of your life here and some of your best years of your life. If you had one happy memory you wanted to share with people as a parting message, what would it be?
For me, it was more than just a memory. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh.
No.
For me, it was more than a memory. It was more of an experience. Last year, I co-founded a student society, which united people from my country, and we did manage to initiate some events and invite guest speakers from business, environment, and politics from my country and from post-Soviet republics. And it was a very interesting experience, meeting new people and organizing events, negotiating with speakers, and at the same time expanding your network of connections. So it's basically fun combined with usefulness. And that's something we've been doing throughout the whole third year, despite the limitations imposed by the COVID restrictions. I think that's something very memorable outside of academic life at King's.
Yeah, I went to Indonesia for a week with King's Business School in first year as one of these common purpose trips. That was great, like life experience. I'd never been to that part of the world, so definitely the times I spent there were good memories.
You're all making me pretty jealous because I thought that my good memory was just like pulling all-nighters with my friends. But yeah, I haven't been to Indonesia, I'm afraid.
I was about to say the same. I think my dearest memories from King's are just like nights spent on the 4th floor of Strand, like in those like computer rooms that are like, or like the abandoned old geography department rooms that we just repurpose and like all night grind like like caves and we'd get kicked out in the last minutes when the security were like, well, you guys still here, it's 4 a.m. Yeah, that's definitely what I remember the best.
For me too. I think for me, relationships are very important. And for example, for most of us, COVID took a big part of our King's degree, I would say. And so a lot of it was online. But having had the chance to be in person for the first half was, I think, a huge gift that I know some people who started a bit later did not have. And so being able to maintain these relationships with people in my cohort, but also sometimes professors whose classes I'd really enjoyed and just touching base was something super, super special, I think. And maybe just one thing I did perhaps during my degree, which was like a tiny thing, but that surprised me. I took a behavioral finance course in my second year, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I read a book called Misbehaving by Richard Taylor because the professor had recommended it. And I finished it and I was just so amazed by what everything was going on in this book. I just decided to like see if I could find his email. And I was like, okay, what am I going to say to this like Nobel Prize winner? Like nothing very important, but I had to like tell him that I was so amazed by his book. And he just like responded like, oh, like, I don't know, something like, thank you, sent from my iPad. And I was just like over the moon. So yeah.
That's fantastic. So thanks everyone. I just want to, we've hit time, right? So that's kind of the end of this, but I just want to bring a huge thank you to all of our speakers who are former alumni and of course, students of mine. I'm really pleased to see you guys are all off into the world on great new adventures. I'm quite jealous actually, you know, like I want to know when I get to go on my year in China and do all this. But I hope you all found the discussion really interesting and inspiring, especially people online. If you've got any other questions about what we shared today, don't hesitate to get in touch with the alumni office. So that's forever@kcl.ac.uk. Now they don't mince words, do they? At the alumni office, forever. And once again, thank you to Ariel, Lucas, Lena, Alwa, and Tamerlan for joining us today. And thank you all there online for listening.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. It was
Thank
lovely.
you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.